Hey kids, this is Ivan. Today I'm going to talk to you about the Cleric. Now the Cleric has always been one of my favorite classes to play in old D&D. You can use any kind of armor. Your weapon choices are fairly decent. You've got great hit dice and great THAC0 or attack bonus right behind the fighter. You got fantastic saves. You got a modest XP requirement, and you can heal yourself and turn undead. So the whole Cleric vibe for me has always just been one of my favorites, and I've had a blast playing them over the years. Now I use a few common house rules amongst old school gamers for the clerics in my game now. However, these very common house rules also tend to be rather controversial amongst old school gamers. So I'm going to talk about what they are, why I use them, what my rationales are, and then talk a little bit about the archetype of the cleric in history or the lack thereof, and why I just don't think that's really a big deal. Now, as far as spells concerned, I do a few things. With the extra spells that clerics get for high wisdom, I parse those out like one by one. So if you get 2 extra first level spells and 2 extra second level spells for having high wisdom, I'll give them out to you 1 per level. So at first level you get 1 of those extra first level spells. The second level you get another one of those extra first level spells. Third level you get a first one of the extra second level spells. Fourth level you get the second one. Just to kind of spread them out, because I think it's a little game breaking to just kind of dump like a bunch of second level spells on a third level cleric. So that's what I've done for a long time. I also tend to use the 0 level spells or orisons that were introduced in Dragon Magazine after 2nd edition was released, if I have my timeline right. And those are really minor magics. You swap them out on a 2-to-1 basis for first level spells. They're not game breaking. The one I like the most is Cure Minor Wounds, where you cure D4 hit points, to each recipient. So you can kind of heal twice as many people, which is neat in like a low level game when you just need to get everybody out of the dungeon, or just you want to keep going for a little while. The other thing with spells and clerics is they act a little bit differently than magic users. They're assumed to know and have access to all the spells that they're eligible for at a given experience level, unlike magic users who have to go out and find them. However, just like magic users, they're supposed to, by the book, remember and prepare those spells the day before. Now, what people have been doing in house ruling since the game came out pretty much is that some people will let you free cast all heal spells and swap them out for whatever you remembered. Some people let you free cast all spells as a cleric. These days, I tend to let you free cast almost all spells. Maybe at like 5th level and above, I won't let you do that in spell level, because the gods are supposed to be bestowing that upon you, and you're supposed to pray for that specific spell. But for the most part, I don't find it game breaking to let you free cast. And there's a couple reasons why I let people do that. First one is, if you look at magic user spells and cleric spells and compare them, magic user spells are spell for spell more powerful. They have a wider variety of spells. They just have a wider variety of effects. Clerics have a more narrow focused of spell effects, and they're useful in a different kind of way. The other reason is that these are like make or break spells. These spells directly make the difference between somebody living or dying right now. As a cleric, you need to cast Cure Light Wounds or Cure Disease or neutralize poison on Jimmy the fighter right now, or he's going to die. Now, sure, a magic user can indirectly save the life of the party by, shooting off a fireball and killing the trolls, but that's indirect. This is something that you really need to do right now. You need to pray for Jimmy the fighter and sacrifice a goat to your god later on. I think that's the cleric's whole shtick. He's going to pray to his god and help the party out with what they need right then. So it doesn't bug me that I let him free cast. As far as weapon restrictions go, you have to kind of understand the history of the game. When they came out with the cleric originally, it was because there was a vampire in the original D&D campaign that was going to break the game, and so they wanted a Von Helsing type character. And as they did the research or whatever for putting this class together, Gary found this one priest that only used non-edged weapons. He didn't spill blood. So there, all of a sudden you have the cleric that only uses a mace. Now, I like the vibe of a cleric using a mace when I typically do that. But I don't think there's anything wrong with having the rules where the gods have favored weapons and clerics of different alignments or different gods can use swords or knives or whatever. I just don't see the reason to limit them like they used to. It was a game balance issue at one point with some of the weapon damages things, but it's just not as relevant anymore. So it doesn't bug me if you want to use different things. So I vary from campaign to campaign and from god to god as far as what weapons you get to use. On the subject of evil clerics and good clerics, some people only let evil clerics control undead and not turn them. I'll let you turn them. Some people only let good clerics cast Cure Light Wounds and never cause light wounds, and I don't see the reason to kind of limit you that way, depending on your alignment. So maybe for certain gods I'll do that, but for the most part I don't limit you in that manner. Now, as far as the cleric archetype is concerned, there really is no cleric archetype, for the D&D cleric in history. For me, as somebody who first saw the cleric as a little kid, and reading the D&D game for the first time, the archetype for the D&D cleric is the D&D cleric. You know, I always see him as this holy warrior, and he's going out on a mission from God to kill orcs, or he's raising money for his temple by killing monsters and taking their stuff. And, you know, to me, this is fun. You can make him whatever you want. You can make him a Von Helsing undead hunter. You can do you know, pretty much create, you know, whatever kind of character you want, not worry about what the archetype is in history. So I think people worry about that a little bit too much. I think you ought to just play the character the way you'd like, you know, make them up as you go along if you'd like, and just use the rules that work for you.